Intergovernmental Relations and Public Transportation Committee meeting. Today is Tuesday, January 21st of 2025. We are in the CL and Connolly Council chambers on the 4th floor. It is 3:00 p.m. Madam Clerk, could you do the roll call, please?
And just as a reminder to all who are in attendance, this meeting is being recorded and live streamed on the county's YouTube page. Calling the roll, Mr. Schlepper.
Present.
Ms. Simon. Simon is absent at the moment. Mr. Castleberry.
Here.
Mr. Gallagher. Mr. Gallagher is absent at the moment. Mr. Sweeney.
Present.
There is a quorum, and I also like the record to reflect that Council President Miller is in attendance.
Wonderful. Madam Clerk, is there any public comments scheduled?
No, Mr. Chair, no one has signed in.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from the November 19th, 2024 meeting.
Second.
Perfect. And then moving down to matters referred.
Roll call.
Oh, roll call. Sorry about that.
Just yay.
Yeah, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. It's been about 5 years since I've chaired a committee, so procedurally I may be a little bit rusty, but I'll get there. So thanks for your patience today. So then moving down to number 5, matters referred to committee. We can go ahead and get started there.
Resolution number 2025-0020, amending Rules 12E, 12F, and 12G of the County Rules of Council pertaining to the committees of the council.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Trevor Mackler, County Council staff. Before you today is 3 minor changes to the council rules, to Rules 12E, 12F, and 12G. This was sponsored by Council President Miller. I'll briefly go over those if that's okay with the chairman.
Great.
So 12E, it's a minor change to the advisory subcommittees. Currently, council rules allow for, we commonly refer to them as subcommittees of our standing committees. And this, our current rule technically states that a member of the standing committee must sit on the advisory committee, the subcommittee. And what this rule does say and or, so it doesn't require a council member of that standing committee to be on the advisory committee. We currently, under operation of a current subcommittee, do not have a member of the standing committee on there, so we just want to get that in line with our current practice. To date, we've had 2 subcommittees so far, so the one is no longer in effect, and then the subcommittee of the Public Safety and Justice Affairs, that does not have anybody from the standing committee on, so that's why we need to fix this rule. Rule 12F governs the temporary appointments to committee, and that is gives the council president the authority to temporarily appoint members to standing committees in case we need a quorum. Someone might be out of town, someone might not feel well that day, so a council member might not be able to attend their traditional appointed committees. This clarifies how long that appointment is for. And what the rule change there would provide that the council president's temporary appointment to that standing committee is really only good for that point in time of when that original absent member, let's say that person shows up halfway through the committee. So technically just clarifies that the person that was appointed to that committee on a temporary basis serves until the original member shows up or for that particular meeting. Just clarifies that language. A little ambiguous of the current language, so we wanted to clarify that at the council president's direction. And then the final third rule change is changing the name of 2 of the standing committees. That is Rule 12G. And what that does first, currently the Community Development Committee is called Community Development. The proposed rule change would change it to Community Development and Housing. That will properly reflect really what items and what topics get discussed within that committee historically, and I think the intent of the council president moving forward. And then actually the second rule change for the committee is this committee being proposed to change it from council operations, intergovernmental relations, and public transportation to council operations, information technology, and public transportation. In discussions with the council president, it's his intent to refer IT items and to this committee. So he wanted to change the name of that committee to more accurately reflect what this committee would be handling moving forward. And those are the three rule changes, pretty simple. Council President Miller is here today also to address any questions that the committee may have.
Very good. Council President Miller?
So, thank you very much, and I'm just going to add a couple of things for further information on Rule 12E on the advisory subcommittees. The other thing that's changed, and again, it simply reflects the current practice, is that the chairperson of the advisory subcommittee is not a member of the standing committee, is a private citizen, and the current rules say that the chairperson has to be a member of the council. So it, in line with our current practice, we just strike that line saying that it doesn't have to be. On the temporary appointments to committee, the current rule said that the temporary appointment would last only until the member returns to committee. And the problem we have is that if you make a temporary appointment because the current member is not present, and the current member comes to the committee and takes over, and then the current member leaves again, it's unclear as to whether the appointment returns and that the temporary person could resume membership of the committee. And so this change clarifies that, yes, that would take place. And it says that it applies for that meeting of the committee and for those times when the original member is not present. So if any time that the original member is not present, well, then the temporary person could fulfill the duties.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. Thank you. Mr. President, does it work inverted if a council person has to leave and then you can appoint somebody for the duration of the meeting?
You could,
Thank you.
yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And just a comment on the committee names regarding the Community Development and Housing Committee. The name change doesn't change at all what the committee does. It's done housing right along, but we want to elevate the importance of the housing committee, of the housing issue, and just reflect it in the committee's name. In the case of this committee, it does reflect a change in that we're now going to be referring the information and technology items to the committee. But I want to add that it doesn't mean that intergovernmental relations is no longer a part of this committee's purview, which it is, but we expect that there will be much more specific legislation related to information technology than to intergovernmental relations, and the name of the committee is already long, so we just we just leave it at the three, but intergovernmental relations remains within the purview. Thank you.
Great. Do we have any other questions, comments? Yes, Councilman Sweeney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the sponsor and our president, with the name housing, did that come about by collaboration with you and the chairman talking about it, and that came out that way? Because
Yes.
I know how important and serious he's taken this responsibility. And
Yes.
I figured that how it happened. Thank you.
One other thing I would add is that there's nothing immediate or emergent about this, and so 3 readings would be fine on this item.
Great, very good. Any other questions, comments, concerns? All right, very good. Will we move forward to accept this resolution as written? Would that be
I'd like to make a motion.
appropriate? Wonderful.
Second.
Great.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Very good. All right, moving forward.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Resolution number 2025-0042, authorizing an amendment with WB Mason Company for general office supplies and related services.
Afternoon, Mr. Chair, council committee members. Paul Porter, Director of the Department of Purchasing. I'm here for this office supplies amendment for our contract with WB Mason, which provides the general office supplies for departments throughout the county. This is an option year that we're exercising. We last solicited this via request for proposals at the end of 2020, and the contract started April 1, 2021. This is the second option year that we're executing. We did an option at the beginning of April last year, so April 1 of 24 until March 31st of 25. And if we exercise this option, we'll have one additional option year remaining, at which time during calendar year 2026, we would anticipate soliciting these services again with a new contract to start April 1 of 27. I do want to note that in the most recent amendment that was exercised last year, there were hefty price increases because the vendor had held pricing stable since April 1 of 2024 for items on the contract. So for paper-related products, which included folders, planners, legal pads, notebooks, things like that, there was a 38.8% increase last time around. This time around, paper-related office supplies are only increasing from about 2/3 of a percentage point to a maximum of 5.5% per item. And then for non-paper office supplies, things like pens, staples, binder clips, what have you, anything that's not made of paper, those increases were 15.75% last time around, and this time they're 1.44%. So I think that's kind of indicative of the general cooling we've seen in the economy overall. And again, part of the reason for the massive increases last time around were we were paying 2021 prices in 21, 22, 23, and the first couple of months of 24. So those big increases kind of got us to the level where everyone else was paying. We do have a set of core items that were included in the RFP that are, office supplies that are frequently purchased by the county. So all of those have set pricing in the contract, and that's what's being increased by this amendment. I will note that we are able to purchase items that aren't included in that core list, and WB Mason gives us a discount of 45% off list pricing for that. So compared to what an average company that doesn't have a contract, if they just ordered on WB Mason's website, our price point is 45% lower. And again, the price of a pen that's not on contract could vary from day to day. It's not fixed pricing, but we still get a 45% discount off list. Like I said, this is the second option year. We do have one option year remaining if we exercise this. And the other thing I'll note is the vendor does have a variety of kind of store brand or private label brands that are pushed as part of this contract as an alternative to higher price name brand items. Departments typically have a specific purchaser, often somebody like an office manager or a lead administrative assistant who has access to the WB Mason website, has a user profile, and can complete orders for their department. And we don't don't have to pay shipping and handling fees. We typically get next day delivery on these items, as we order them. And each department's budget is charged for the purchases that they make. And again, this contract covers departments throughout the county. So happy to answer any questions.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Do we have any questions or comments, Councilman Sweeney?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Paul, how are you today?
Good. How are you, Councilman? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. It's nice seeing you.
Nice to see you too.
We're so excited to become a director. You still excited?
I am. I'm enjoying it. Most days it's great.
Okay, thank you. I just got two questions through the chair. Just came into my mind when you said 45% comes off the list pricing for non-core stuff.
Correct.
What's our average of the core stuff that is on the shelf? Is it 45% or more?
Sure. I
You might not
believe it's
know that, but-
45% or more. I'll have to take a look. What I kind of focused on when preparing this was what was our price now and what's the increase we're having. I'll try and get you some information about, even with the increase, how much lower than the list price that is. I believe that all of the stuff we're under contract for is greater than a 45% discount, but I'll double check to
Yeah,
make
and through
sure.
it's more curiosity, and
Certainly.
you can see them trying to maximize their sales by saying, oh, we'll give you 45%, and we
Sure.
might not be getting that. So it's more of a little deeper dive due diligence kind of thing. And number two, through the chair, the practice of contract with 3 one-year options. Have we ever just talked about 2 years with 2 and 2? Because back in the Cleveland City Council days, it was always 1, and then I talked to Mayor White, and he's wanted the 2-2, and it seemed to work better for some of the routine stuff. Can you give me your thoughts on that through the chair?
Certainly. So an advantage to this one was we did a 3-year contract initially and then included 3 option years in it.
3, 1,
So,
1, 1?
Yeah, that's how we were able to do, 3 years of steady pricing at the April 1, 2021 level, all the way through March 31st of 24. And now we've got 3 one-year amendment periods that we could exercise. So we kind of looked at that at first, a multi-year agreement to start with, and then 1-year option year periods. We could explore longer option year periods. It would just be, when we were soliciting it, we would indicate that in the work schedule. Could be some advantages. I don't know if the vendor would try and charge us, higher increases to account for 2 years worth of spending. I'm not sure.
And
But
through
it's a
the-
possibility.
No, and through the chair, I like the 3, 1, 1, 1. It's just their model, and it's, you lock down light or low or lock down high, but also the time and effort of your dedicated staff and yourself to put these contracts out.
Sure.
Because it was 1 year, 1 year, 1 year. So I'm glad it's 3, 1, 1, 1. And if, I'm not pushing you to do it, but I just raised the question through the chair to, my past practice of
Sure.
maximizing the pricing, but also not overwhelming the staff by having to do it so regularly on routine stuff.
I think that's considerate. And the one thing I'll note with this, because we have so many core items, it is a really long pricing sheet. And to go through and, the last time we RFP'd this out, we looked at what are departments buying most frequently, because especially in light of the pandemic, purchasing now looks different than it did in 2019 or 2020, for instance. So I take your point to heart. It's a good opportunity for us to minimize the amount of work that we have to do on an annual basis if we're able to do multi-year agreements. And I think the legwork that happened in 2020 to establish that list of core items, essentially, as we're exercising these options, we're just sending that same list back to the vendor and asking, what pricing is being updated, and then determining, is this something we want to move forward with? I would anticipate if we see further changes in the inflationary environment, maybe it makes sense to RFP this out again early next time around. I'm not positive. We'll just kind of have to see where we are as we get closer to March 31st of 26, if this amendment is approved.
Thank you very much, and Mr. Chairman, that's the questions I have for now.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman. I had a general question. When we enter or entered into a contract with WB Mason at that time, were there other vendors that we had worked with? Do you remember how many there may have been? What is the vetting process there specifically for this particular type of contract?
Sure. So when we look at something like this, we would look at kind of the overall pricing list and look at who offers us the best value overall. When you're doing like buying one specific commodity, for instance, it's easy to do an apples to apples comparison. I want to buy this specific truck. Vendor A has it for 51,000, vendor B has it for 52,000. When it was this case, we had to compare all of the different price points for, hundreds of different items. So there was more work that went into that. But again, we looked at, not just like who's got the lowest price, but who's able to give us the stuff that we're looking for. Like if we're asking for specific types of items, not every vendor has the same catalog of items, so we would consider that. And then I mentioned like the alternate brand pricing, maybe what we had in our core list was a name brand binder or stapler. Is this vendor able to quote us a lower price on an alternative brand that would serve the same purpose, for instance? So it's not always who's the lowest price or the cheapest vendor, but what's the best deal for the county overall. Maybe they're higher on a couple of items over here, but overall, we're gonna save money ordering from this vendor. To do that, you have to weigh, how many of each item you're purchasing over the course of the year, things like that. And the other thing I wanna highlight is we do have separate contracts for reprographic paper, so copier and printer paper, and then a separate contract for printer maintenance as well. So this doesn't include, reams of blank copier paper and toner for printers. Those are two things that we order a lot of, but they're ordered under separate contracts.
Well, thank you.
Thank
you
you
so much for that.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to introduce myself, Director Porter. Thank you for being here. I'm Mark Castleberry, Councilman. I did want to ask you about the prior year contracts. Can you speak to, what were the years on those prior to a typical contract?
I will have to take a look since that goes back before 2021, and that was prior to my tenure in this role, so I don't want to give you kind of false information about it, and I didn't bring that with me, but I believe it was multi-year agreements prior to this. Whether or not we did a 3-year agreement with 3 option years, I could follow up on that as well as, what's our overall discount on the items that are on the contract.
No, I understand because as Councilman Sweeney said, you were newer to the position. I didn't know your history, but I did want to know, do you believe, is this 3-year and it's worked out in our favor with the 3 years, and with the option years? It sounded like a good deal so far, and the vendor has lived up to their end of it, and are they doing a good job as well?
They are, and I think to your first question, has this been a good deal for us? Hindsight's 2020. I don't think we knew in April of 21 just how high inflation was going to go. And I think looking at the fact that, we had a 38% price hike, that tells you, and they base their price hikes on like what their suppliers are charging them. And in the case of the 1.44% for non-paper office supplies, they just gave us like the consumer price index increase since last year to now for that specific area of goods. So I don't think we're getting gouged at all. They're basing it on what are overall trends in the industry. I think the fact that we entered into a 3-year agreement when we did, nobody knew it was going to be like this, and we saved a lot of money in 9 months of 21 from April 1st to 12/31, and then all of 22 and 23 and the first couple of months of 24. Did we have to stomach a big price increase last time around? Absolutely. That helped kind of get us up to what everyone else was paying, and I think the evidence that they showed, the much smaller price increases this time around, things are cooling off. You know, it's a better environment overall. And as to vendor performance, we did ask them for some performance data, and one of the questions was about sustainability. So one thing I want to point out is 17.99% of the product that we've ordered through the life of the contract, so April 1 of 21 to 12/31 of 24, almost 18% of it was recycled product in some form or fashion. So that to me shows that our departments are taking advantage of being able to order sustainable products when they can. And the other thing that stood out to me from their report, hold on, let me navigate to a slightly different page here. I think their overall order fulfillment, our returns only represented 4.5%. So we really didn't have a lot of returns during the contract period. And their overall order fulfillment, was 99.3%. So on next day delivery, we were able to get close to 100% of what we ordered. And they do make it really user-friendly. At this point, 90% of our orders are going in online. There's only 10% that we're having to like call and interact with the salesperson or an account rep for. So from the perspective of departments, this vendor is doing a good job for us. It's a pretty easy process to get the orders done, you know, add somebody from a department to be a buyer, all of the above.
Thank you, Director. Appreciate all the information.
Certainly, and welcome aboard.
Thank you for that question, Councilman. That was a question that I had too. It sounds like the relationship that you have with WB Mason has been really positive.
I would say yes.
Great,
Thank you.
fantastic. Do we have any other questions, comments? Okay. Can we move to accept this resolution as written? And a
Second.
Fantastic. All right. And all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the ayes have it.
Excuse me,
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I just want to clarify, is that for second reading or second reading suspension?
I think that's second reading.
Second reading, yes, that's our perspective. It goes through 3/31, so we've got time.
Yeah, great. Perfect.
Thank you.
All right, moving down to miscellaneous business. Do we have any miscellaneous business? It does not.
Not today.
All right, very good. Well then, without further ado, I move to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Hit that gavel.
3:31. Very good.